So it's been just a little over half a year since the Nintendo Switch 2 released back in June, and the system has been extremely successful, breaking so many records and selling extremely fast, and I feel like most people have definitely been satisfied with the games and the experiences that have been possible right away from the Nintendo Switch 2 also, with like Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and Kirby Air Riders, but also Switch 2 editions for games like Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA. But everything surrounding the Nintendo Switch 2 hasn't been sunshine and rainbows either, and I'm sure you guys have seen the videos and articles and people talking about the controversies that it's had with like $80 games and charging really high prices for accessories and all this other extra stuff. But there was also one big issue that it seemed like the most amount of people were really disappointed by when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, and it seems like Nintendo might have actually done something about it. Now real quick before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that I am having a special giveaway for the holidays where I'm going to be giving away a brand new Nintendo Switch 2 to one lucky winner. Giving away a console has been something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I've never really been in the situation to do so, but with the launch of the next generation Nintendo system this year, and having talked about it on the channel for so long, I thought it would finally be the perfect time to give it to one of you guys. All you have to do to enter is just click the link below in the description or the pinned comment and you can have a chance to win a brand new Nintendo Switch 2. The giveaway is open worldwide and it does end right before Christmas, so definitely be sure to enter for a chance to win. So really, with all the things that people don't like about the Nintendo Switch 2, it definitely seemed like there was one topic that had the most amount of people disappointed, and that was what Nintendo was doing with the game key cards. And so really, when the big Nintendo Switch 2 Direct happened back in April, and we got the announcements for a lot of these big third-party games coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, everyone was excited, but then it was after that we found out that if you wanted to get the physical version of any of these third-party games, they were all coming on something known as a game key card, where essentially when you open the case and you take out the cartridge, that cartridge itself doesn't actually have any game data, but is rather just a key that you put inside of your console to then give you access to go to the eShop and download pretty much the entire game digitally onto your system. And so this caused a lot of people to be upset with how Nintendo is handling the physical versions of these third-party games, because physical versions for video games for the longest time have always just had all of the game data inside of the disc or the cartridge or whatever you were playing on, and that way you never had to worry about downloading anything besides just like updates for games or DLC or something like that. But really the case with this is like, if you really wanted to play some of these third-party games on the Nintendo Switch 2, you would need to first have an internet connection to literally download the game first, even having the physical cartridge, because it's just a game key card. And I was very disappointed by this decision also, because after hearing all the rumors about how powerful the Nintendo Switch 2 was going to be, I definitely thought that this was going to be a more capable system of having third-party games, and I was even thinking that a lot of the third-party games that I was thinking about buying, I might just get them on the Nintendo Switch 2 and have them so that I could play them on the go, maybe play them in my bed and just have it be much more accessible instead of getting the games on the PS5. But once I found out that pretty much all of them were game key cards, it really kind of soured my taste for really wanting to get them, and I've still just been buying those games for the PS5. And really the example that I like to use to illustrate how stupid this is let's say that you have a really long flight that's coming up and you're gonna need something to play for a few hours while you're on the plane. And if you were in the DS or the 3DS era and you were bringing that system with you onto the plane, you could stop by like a GameStop before the airport and take a look at all of the games that they have for the DS or the 3DS and find one that looks a little bit interesting to you, buy it, and then you can go on the plane and you can open it up there, you can put the cartridge inside of your DS or your 3DS, and you'll be able to start playing the game, and you can play the entire game there on the entire plane ride. But if you do that exact same scenario again, but this time with a Nintendo Switch 2, well, when you go into the store and you're looking at all of these third-party Nintendo Switch 2 games, let's say that this one really caught your attention and you're like, you know what, I've heard good things about this Final Fantasy VII Remake game, I want to check this out, I'll play this on my Switch 2, so you buy the game, you have it in the plastic wrap, and you take it with you onto the plane, you unwrap it from the shrink wrap and everything, and you get the cartridge out, and you put it into your Nintendo Switch 2, well, in this situation, it's actually going to tell you right away you have to connect to the internet and download 80 gigabytes of the game onto your system because that cartridge doesn't have any of the game data. And that's why it's just so dumb, because for the longest time, physical games have always just had the game data on them and you were just able to put it into your system and be able to play, or if it was like a disc, then you had to just wait for it to install, but all of the game data was still on the disc, so it would just install locally without internet. But now you can't do any of that and you have to download everything online digitally. And it was later revealed by a game developer that the reason why this kept happening for physical versions of third-party games on the Switch 2 is because Nintendo was only providing one capacity for a cartridge to use with Nintendo Switch 2 games. See, with the original Nintendo Switch, all of the cartridges for the physical games that are on that system come in many different sizes, and Nintendo offered a wide range of storage sizes for these cartridges for developers to choose. And of course, the bigger the cartridge capacity, the more expensive it would be for the publisher and the developers of the game, so they would really try to optimize their game to a certain amount of gigabytes so that they could try to fit it onto one of these smaller cartridges and then sell that game as the physical version of it on the Switch 1. And well, it was revealed by one of the developers that with the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo only offers one cartridge size for the physical games on that system, which is a 64GB cartridge, and then the other one is essentially just a game keycard cartridge where there's nothing except a very small amount of space that is on there just to put the key to the game so that it lets you download the game from the eShop. And so now, if you're in the shoes of like a third-party developer or publisher, and let's say that your game is like Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is on the Switch 2, this game is only 3GB. So if you have a 3GB game and you want to have a physical version of this game on the Switch 2, but your only option is to buy a really expensive 64GB cartridge so that you can put your entire game on there, or to buy a very cheap game key card where you can just put like kind of the key to being able to download the entire game on there, which one are you going to choose? Well, of course, pretty much everyone is going to choose the game key card, because who's going to have a 64GB cartridge for just a 3GB game where you're going to have to buy that extremely expensive cartridge and you're not even going to be using like 90% of the space that's on there. And so this is pretty much why every physical version of third-party games on the Switch 2 have been game key cards, and I guess Nintendo thought that nobody was going to care about this and everybody would just eat it up, but it got through to them pretty clear that, yeah, people don't like this. And I think like even inside of their own investors meetings, they had people that were kind of lashing out a little bit, being like, this is a very unappealing look, this is a lazy solution, like it doesn't make sense, and I think they easily understood that people are not liking this. I know a couple months ago there was also a survey that Nintendo was handing out to people in their emails, and I think there was also a link to it where they were asking people how they buy their games. Do you get them physically mostly? Do you get them digitally? How do you feel about game key cards? Why do you think that physical games are so important? And there was even spaces where like you could type in paragraphs about how you feel about everything, and I made sure to do that survey and like really kind of explain in great detail about why I'm not a fan of this and why I don't really like the direction that we're heading with all of this, and it seemed like a lot of other people also did the same. And well, it seems like Nintendo might actually be doing something about this, because we've got this post here from Wario64 where it looks like it's talking about this upcoming game for the Nintendo Switch 2, where it's talking about like R-Type Dimensions 3, where it's talking about the physical version is going to have the full game on the cartridge, but the price is going to be increasing. But the thing is, if we look at this like blog where they're talking about this, it also mentions something very interesting, which Wario64 posted here after, saying, in the same update, ININ Games also confirms that Nintendo announced 2 smaller cartridge sizes for Nintendo Switch 2 games. So if this is true, then this means now there are going to be 3 capacities that you can finally get games for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, of course, this is still not even close to kind of the amount of like cartridge sizes that you have on the Switch 1, but like it is definitely showing that there's a little bit of progress, because the only option that we had before was 64GB. So now if we have 2 other smaller sizes, maybe like 32 and 16, that's pretty good, because now maybe it means that some other third-party games that maybe can fit their game onto a 16GB cartridge might actually choose to have that now, instead of trying to release their game only as a game key card. And I'm hoping that maybe as time goes on, Nintendo can have even smaller versions where they can have an 8GB version, or a 2GB or 4GB version, and maybe even a bigger version with like 128GB, because that way, once you give developers all of these different options, now they can finally start to optimize their games again to try to fit them in a certain amount of a size so that they can put it into one of these cartridges and then have the full game on there, and we can go back to how it was like on the Switch 1. And so with this moving forward, I'm really hoping that slowly we start to see less game key cards when it comes to the physical versions of third-party games on the Switch 2, and especially if Nintendo keeps going and offering even more cartridge sizes and we get to see developers trying to optimize their games more, then I'm really hoping that we can really just kind of remove game key cards and really only have them as like a last resort if like a game is like 120 gigabytes and there is not a single cartridge size where you could try to optimize the game and fit it onto there, then sure, go ahead and have a game key card, and then that way the entire game can just find its way onto a micro SD card for somebody on their system. But if you can really get a game like, especially like a game like Puyo Puyo Tetris, where that game is 3 gigabytes and the fact that you can't have that game with the full game data on a cartridge is really disappointing. So I'm happy that this looks to be that Nintendo is moving in the right direction and they're starting to do something about it. And this should just be the best example that even with an extremely stubborn company like Nintendo, which rarely goes back on any decisions that they do, even with that, people were able to still make them take action by letting them know that they really don't like game key cards. People participated in that survey and really like told Nintendo that they don't like game key cards. People were refusing to buy them. I still haven't bought any game key cards, and I think Nintendo really got the message that, yeah, people are not liking this and we're gonna need to do something about it, as opposed to if we just did nothing and people were like, oh well, this is just the reality of things now, you're just gonna have to live with it. Like the amount of people that were trying to tell me like, oh, we're moving into this digital future, Aero, you can't do this anymore, like it's just not the way that it used to be. Like, shut up, bro. Like, no, there is definitely always a solution to be able to fix these types of things, but if people are just choosing to not even have their voice heard or do anything about it, then of course these companies are just gonna walk all over us and really never do anything. But you can see here that even with all this stuff, it seems like Nintendo is starting to do something and starting to make it a little bit better. And so I'm really hoping we start to see more full versions of games with third parties on the Switch 2 moving forward. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I'm definitely gonna have some more videos talking about Nintendo, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you think about this. Are you excited by this information now that it seems like we might actually start to see less game key cards? Did you not care about them in the first place? How do you feel about it all? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. But if you don't have anything to say about this, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at @Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. And remember to enter my giveaway as well. I'm giving away a brand new Nintendo Switch 2, and all you gotta do to enter is just click the link below in the description or the pinned comment. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.